Welcome to another Surgecast. Last couple of weeks, I think the narratives that have really been blowing up have been prediction markets, obviously led by Polymarket and Kalshi, but we're seeing a lot of really hot players come to the market. And so today we wanted to spotlight a couple of the cool projects we've been talking to at least. So today's agenda, pretty chill one. We're going to start with some quick introductions. We're going to go into a quick 5-minute pitch from both PredictIt and Pandora. Then we'll open up the floors to questions and hopefully have a great discussion today. So, how about we start with Jacob? Do you want to quickly introduce yourself and predict it?
Absolutely. I'm Jacob Studwell. I am from PredictIt. I also host and produce the PredictIt podcast. PredictIt has been one of the longest running U.S. prediction markets. We've been around since 2014. We operate under a no action letter from the CFTC. So we have a lot of experience in the space, and we're mostly for political wonks. We're for the politics heads. We offer some fun, wonky markets like, how well are Elizabeth Warren's endorsements going to do, or, who's going to succeed more in terms of redistricting and that kind of stuff. So we're all about politics all the time, and just excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
Oh, love it, dude. And I really do believe that the riches are the niches. The niches. There are so many different predictions markets coming out right now that focus on specific segments, whether that be sports, whether that be politics, whether that be anything and everything. And that's the beauty of this space, right? You're able to bring markets that previously didn't exist to a much wider global audience as well, not even just in the US. So appreciate the introduction, Jacob. DeFi Daddy, let's pop over to you, mate.
Thank you so much for hosting. Nice to meet you, Jacob. My name is Nathan, also called DeFi Daddy. I'm with Pandora. I guess the primary value proposition of Pandora is that we are a permissionless prediction market. So anyone can make markets on anything as long as it is publicly verifiable. So it could be video games with your friends, it could be politics, it could be sports, it could be geopolitical conflict, asset prices, whatever it may be. Think about it like a truly decentralized version where everything is hosted on chain. Humans create the question, and AI helps resolve the truth. And that's like the basic elevator pitch of Pandora. It's designed to be an open system for everyone.
I love it. I love it. So, gentlemen, let's get into the nitty gritty now, right? We have a very high level overview of what you guys do and where you guys come from right now. But let's get into the really deep details, right? Like, what types of problems are you guys solving? What's your solution? What's the team's experience? And then that overarching vision. And Jacob, I mean, I'd love for you to start. I'm sure there's a lot of history coming, having been around since 2014. Do you want to quickly address a couple of these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally, I mean, we're starting from the beginning of the prediction market problem and solution, right? We're trying to get reliable signals for complex questions, right? So there's a lot of information out there in terms of politics. You have fundraising numbers, you have polling numbers, you have kind of, staffers talking about different things on the Hill. You have lots of different pieces of information, and we're basically trying to aggregate all of it and ensure that the wisdom of the crowds is accurately represented, and we're actually displaying real-time market-driven probabilities on real-world events. So it's the simplest prediction market issue and solution, but again, we've been working on this since 2014. So the goal is really to have a clear understanding of probabilistic events, and I think we do that pretty successfully. I think we have the smartest trader base out there. We're consistently ahead of the curve in terms of timing and reacting to different real world actions and events. So that's the basic problem and solution.
Absolutely. And so what are you guys doing right now that some of the other prediction markets aren't necessarily really touching on at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, I alluded to it earlier. We definitely have some very interesting markets that are getting to very, very specific political questions. I'll give another example in Texas. We had that Democratic Senate primary back in when was that? March, and we were wondering like who's going to win a specific county in Texas, right? That is a big head-to-head matchup between James Tallarico and Jasmine Cook. So those specific markets is a lane that we fill, and we also fill a specific niche in terms of writing the rules very specifically and accurately. I mean, DeFi Daddy mentioned it that it has to be publicly verifiable. That's part of what how we write our rules, but we make sure that everybody understands exactly how our markets are going to settle. So we limit the amount of settlement ambiguity as much as possible. And we have experience, so much experience. We've talked to our traders over and over again just to understand exactly what they are looking for in written rules. I'll give you a quick example. I was just emailing back and forth with my dad. He saw a Polymarket market about when will the war end in Iran, and he was like, "Why is it 75% yes for?" I think it was literally April 15th. It was today, and he was like, "I'm missing something." And I said, "You have to read the rules because the rules say, even though the market says like when will the war end, the rules say if there's no fighting for 15 days straight, it will settle yes. So it's more of a will the market or will the war not have bombings or military action by Iran, Israel, and the U.S. for 15 days straight market than what the headline says, which is like, will the war end? Because there's a difference there. And that introduces settlement ambiguity when the market headline is different from what the rules say.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with the UI UX that you guys have developed, not only do you bring in, well, a little bit more of an accurate headline, but you do give the rules for the users to know exactly what settlement looks like, right?
Yeah, exactly. The rules are all right there, and oftentimes we'll introduce clarifications as well. So if traders have questions on rules, we want to answer them as quickly and as clearly as possible. We'll even note in the headline, like we just added a confirmation or an addendum to the rules just to specify. I think another one that we had was, will Trump leave early? And that's basically originally intended to imply like a 25th Amendment or a resignation. But traders had questions on like what does the term otherwise vacates mean? So we added an addendum to say, hey, otherwise vacates implies every other possibility. It basically encapsulates everything else. So always read the rules. I think that's like my main takeaway from prediction markets is if you're not reading the rules, there's a slight chance that you could be completely off in your assumptions and you could lose. So definitely always read the rules.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And another question that I have as well, it sounds like you guys get really deep into the weeds when it comes to making sure that that customer experience is first and foremost, right? Like it can't be easy replying to all of these emails, all of these messages, all of these comments on what the specificity of those rules are. How do you guys manage that? How many users do you guys have right now, and how do you keep it scalable?
It's a good question. We have lots of different users, and it really fluctuates with the real world events and especially elections and the election season. But we have a great team that basically everyone's all hands on deck. We're constantly talking between it's my PR teammate who's working with our social media person, who's working with our CMO, who's working with me. We've got our designers and our dev people. Everybody is essentially speaking to each other and saying, hey, here's a question from a trader. I think this is the answer, but let's clarify. I meet with my markets team almost daily, and that markets team is the people who write the rules, who create those markets, and we're constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, create new interesting markets, but also make sure everyone understands exactly what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there could be even an interesting angle here for you guys to empower the right community members who do give kind of like community notes, give them kind of like a kudos system or a point system at some point in time, kind of like outsourcing some of that towards what they do. And of course, making it scalable for you guys to focus on building these great markets for your audiences. Jacob, really appreciate the answers. Gives a lot of clarity to what you guys are doing right now. I guess I just have one more question, right?
Yeah.
What does the team's experience look like? You guys going into doubling down on this political niche. Have you guys come from politics, or is this something that you guys have just had like a really, really deep passion on since 2014?
Yeah. So I actually used PredictIt back in like 2015, 2016. So I think most of the team is more from the trader side. We have some former like pundits and also former staffers who actually worked on the Hill. We have somebody who's actively on the Hill kind of advising us. So it's a mixture. I think we lean towards representing the trader more so than the actual political insider, but we try to get people from different backgrounds. But generally, we really understand Washington, D.C. And the heart of things. But I think my CMO is typically trying to find people who are not in New York, are not in L.A., are definitely not in D.C. And we're trying to pull a little bit more from a diverse country. We have staffers or employees from Canada, like you, DeFi Daddy. So we care about every country. We also have international elections that go huge. We just had a big market on Hungary. The Peruvian elections, or at least the first round, was over the weekend. So we're looking out for everything.
Love it, love it. And I'm gonna save this question for later, but I definitely want to talk about regulation, especially being like a US company as well. But before we get into that, and appreciate the answers, Jacob, DeFi Daddy, stage is yours. What is Pandora trying to solve for? What is your solution? Happy to hear about the team's experience as well, and then that overarching vision.
Yeah, sure. So I think the best way to approach this is I'll give like a little bit of a timeline in terms of like when we brought the product to market and kind of where we are now. Pandora came out basically at the start of March, so still very new, just over like I think the middle of February, so about 2 months or so it's been out. It's a decentralized marketplace, and so what that means is liquidity has to come from the community, and that is one of the challenges that we saw coming. Because when you trade on a platform like Kalshi, they have internalized market makers to fill orders, narrow spreads, etc. Given that we're fully decentralized, liquidity comes from the community. It was more or less a problem to start, right? Because if there's a market with only $100 in liquidity, you try and put $10 in, that's going to create significant slippage. And so as a team, we were kind of strategizing how to fix this, right? And so two of the things that we're doing, one of them we've already done, is we've created MCPs and CLIs. So people who have agents, whether it's OpenClaw, Manus, et cetera, and they're navigating the Web3 space, we created a complete toolkit for them to get involved with Pandora. So whether it's providing liquidity, finding mispriced bets by comparing Pandora markets to external sport books, or comparing them to Polymarket. We basically created a toolkit for agents to not only master Pandora, but kind of master gambling in general. And so that was one of the ways that we thought we could make it more accessible, per se. But then we learned that most people don't have their own AI agent yet. We're not at that stage of the adoption curve yet, per se. And so now we've kind of gone down a path where we're creating an AI agent launchpad with these skills baked in to help facilitate that process. So I guess trials and tribulations of launch. Number one, liquidity. And so we created AI agent infrastructure for people to A, have the skills, or B, create their own agent. And then the other challenge that we kind of came into was resolution. Resolution's really tricky. Like you were saying, Jacob, the rules are everything, right? It's the nuance. The devil is in the details. We've seen this with multiple markets, both on Kalshi and Polymarket, like the will the Iranian supreme leader get removed before X date? And there's like, well, he didn't get removed. He got, let's say, gray screened, sent back to the lobby. And they ended up refunding people and taking millions of dollars of loss, so they say. So rules in our system, it's written by the person who makes the question, and once they're set, they can never change. AI tries to find a reasonable answer to them, and if it can't, it goes towards human verification, where humans are able to vote and participate and try and govern what they believe is to be true. And so we have not been in the space since 2014, like PredictIt, just over 2 months, like I said, but we're learning. And so I guess just to kind of summarize, the first problem was liquidity, to which we created agentic tooling to throw in the big buzzwords, the AI agent tooling for prediction markets, because we did think there's a huge product market fit for agents to be trading on prediction markets, and we kind of want to be at the forefront of that. And then the other trial and tribulations is rules, which is tough because AI isn't perfect, man. It can hallucinate, it can fail to find the right answer. Or even as you've probably seen with like Claude over the past like 2 weeks, they degraded Opus 4.6, and it went from like the IQ of a triple PhD mathematician to a grade 12 struggling in English class.
No, I love it, mate. I love it. I really appreciate your candor here as well. Like, I understand where you guys are trying to go, trying to loop the community in to make sure that there is enough liquidity for a lot of these markets, which I know a lot of teams are struggling with, right? And I guess I have a question for both of you guys. With where the prediction market space is kind of like moving right now, where do you guys see, the biggest risk and hurdles? And I want this to naturally lead into, that regulatory conversation afterwards as well. But let's start with you, DeFi Daddy, and then we can pop the question over to Jacob.
I guess like where it's going from a high level. I mean, I think a really good question to focus on in this context is insider trading. Because insider trading, I think, is a core value proposition of prediction markets because it's what makes them so efficient, right? It's like your ability to monetize on private info in a public setting. Whether people agree with that, that's another conversation. But like at a high level, that kind of is the core, I guess, value proposition of prediction markets is, hey, you know something, bet on it. Turn your bet into a belief, whatever it may be. Now, obviously, there's a lot of examples that aren't very kosher. Like, for example, the people front running the military action in Venezuela or whatever it may be. But I think when you look at it from the regulatory lens, that is going to be one of the greatest points of friction with it gaining more regulatory adoption and cohesion within our society. Because we know that insider trading happens in finance. We know that it happens in sports even, right? Hey, go miss this free throw. I want you to win by less than 10. Right? Like there's an entire movie about it with Adam Sandler. I forget what it's called. Uncut Gems. That's what it is. Right. And so we know that this idea of insider trading is prolific across different markets. And I think that is going to be one of the biggest pain points for prediction markets, getting that regulatory certainty. Because as we've seen, I mean, Polymarket, I think, partnered with Palantir to try and crack down on insider trading. And I'm like, man, I don't even want to know what that deal looks like. You connect your wallet and now they've got your firstborn child. Anyways, I digress. But I do think insider trading is one of the regulatory hurdles that needs to be overcome in order for these markets to gain traction at large. I know they're like fully integrated within like the scope work of the CFTC, but I do think that is a point of friction.
No, I completely agree with that. And I mean, it is why a lot of the markets feel so efficient as well, right? People putting their money where they have this information. Obviously, it doesn't lean fair to a lot of the people that are kind of coming in, no information, kind of just like putting in a bet. But it is why this information is sometimes more accurate than, well, if we look in the context of polls and politics, where people do know where things are trending towards. Jacob, flipping it back to you guys. I mean, you guys have been around for such a long time. I'm sure you have seen regulations change over those couple of years as well, even to where it is right now, where a lot of countries don't even accept prediction markets as anything more than kind of like iGame or like casinos, right? So, where do you see the space kind of like evolving over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me just piggyback off of DeFi Daddy a little bit, and then I'll get to kind of where the space is headed. How we look at insider trading or regulations, a lot of things on our side are kind of self-regulated, but we do have an agreement, a no action letter with the CFTC that governs kind of our rules and regulations. For example, we do not put out war markets at all. War markets are completely off the table. So anything that has to do with Iran at all is off the table. And that's kind of where the discussion ends. The other piece is we have individual market position caps. So basically, you can't put more than $3,500 into an individual market as an individual, and that's actually tied to the FEC campaign contribution limit. So our opinion and how we view things is that nobody's going to go crazy over $3,500, and those caps actually prevent people from giving away military secrets, because I assume they go for a higher price than that $3,500 mark. So that's how we view things, and we also do like pretty strict KYC. We're always knowing exactly who is actually trading on our platform, so there's no dark money, essentially. Those are kind of the two main pieces that we use to nip that piece in the bud. But you asked about where the industry is headed. I worked in gaming before this, so I've kind of seen a similar path for a similar industry. And right now we're in the gigantic boom phase, right? We're going to have so many different startups, innovations that come up. We're going to have big players in the space. We're going to have small players in the space. It's really just a total boom phase. And yes, we start off with two big players, Polymarket and Kalshi. And guess what? When the gaming industry started to become regulated and legal, guess who was there? It was DraftKings and it was FanDuel. And it was also those two players. But there is a very clear area for other players to be in the space. There are lots of different gaming licenses out there available in many different states and lots of different companies. So I do think long term there'll probably be a safe space to live in that like top 10 range in terms of like volume or liquidity. But in general, at some point, we will see some consolidation. I assume Polymarket and Kalshi are going to want consolidation sooner rather than later. They're going to want to kind of gobble up the interesting features and new innovations out there as soon as possible. And we get into like a whole antitrust conversation. But that's how I've seen the industry in the past, at least on the gaming side.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I mean, we've seen this from market to market to market, right? Really interesting that you have decided to add guardrails, like having a maximum of 3,500 for bids. Does that not remove a good section of the amount of TVL and volume that you might be able to see through like whales and larger scale kind of like players, even people who might not necessarily have this private information? Do you guys have any intentions to kind of like provide like even introduce something like a leveling system that increases your cap depending on how much you kind of like have participated and over like a certain duration of time, to kind of like prove that they're real users and kind of deserve to be able to bid higher rather than losing them to different to different competitors?
Yeah, it's set in stone. It's in that no action letter. It's part of the cap actually used to be smaller before we went through a legal battle with the CFTC in 2022. For a couple of years, essentially, I think it used to be 1,200. I wasn't with PredictIt at the time. I think the cap used to be 1,200. Through negotiation, through legal battles, we landed on that $3,500 cap to equal the FEC campaign contribution level. Because remember, we are an academic research framework. We are run by the Prediction Market Resource Consortium. So from our perspective, we are kind of like a learning tool. We're very academic focused. We have those academic partners. So how we view it is actually like we allow the regular people who are on the ground, who maybe know those like house races better than the rest of the country, because you're just on the ground, you're living in it. We allow those people to trade equally to the dark money whales, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
You can't really get pushed around. I mean, everybody's been at that poker table or they've tried their hand at that poker table in Vegas, and they sit down and they immediately get pushed around by those giant chip stacks, and they kind of walk away and they're like, why did I ever sit down at the table? We make sure that doesn't happen. We allow like a very even playing field. And look, we want the best information out there, but it's got to go through that $3,500 cap.
Absolutely, absolutely. Where is your user base at the moment? Having been around for such a long time, Are you able to share, how many monthly active users, daily active users you guys are at?
So no direct numbers. I'll just be upfront. Like we're not going to share those, but we
Mhm.
are exclusively in the U.S. So you do have to be U.S. based,
Yeah.
and that's where we focus all our time and attention in. Even though we do have some Canadian employees, we do focus on U.S. traders, and they can kind of trade on anything. So yeah.
Love it, love it. And DeFi Daddy, does Pandora also require KYCs? And if not, do you think you will eventually need to move there with where regulation is moving as well?
No, we do not currently require KYC. It's a fully open and decentralized system. I guess like the most relevant comparison is like Uniswap. It's like,
Mm.
okay, you don't need to KYC with Uniswap. You may need to verify your signature to confirm that you own the wallet, but that's more for, I guess, like the Web3 smart contract infrastructure side. Um, and so, like, one of the, like, I guess, mental models that we work with internally is at one point Uniswap was banned in the US, right? Like, the IP was banned. You couldn't access it. You couldn't use the front end, but you could still interact with the smart contract, right? Like, at the smart contract level, it could never actually be fully banned. And so, as Pandora continues to grow and we make active steps to bring liquidity to the platform, surely we'll be told to stop operating in certain regions, in which case we will disable the front end in that region. But because everything is on chain, from the smart contracts to the AI oracles, at the end of the day, it is that permissionless system that we've built where people will always be able to interact with the smart contract, regardless if the front end's been disabled. And that's kind of like our core ethos when building. Our founder is very DeFi native. And he has always been of the belief that everyone should be able to access everything, and that's why we built the fully on-chain infrastructure.
Love it. I love how we have like completely opposite ends of the spectrum, and I can completely see the direction that both companies are moving in, right? PredictIt being fully on that regulation side of things, almost being like a case study for regulation and seeing what works, what doesn't, adjusting it to allow for more of like well, hopefully broader adoption. Whereas on Pandora's side, it's completely decentralized. It's feeding a lot more into that DeFi crypto native user experience, where people want to just be able to participate in the platform without having the government looking over their shoulders. And I think both of you guys are moving in great directions for what you guys are doing respectively. Where do you guys kind of see like this converging? I know as regulation starts to get pushed out, DeFi Data, you did mention you guys would need to close off some of the front end, but is there going to be some point of balance where regulation and decentralization kind of move in tandem? I'm happy for
Uh,
either of you. That was a long one, but anyone that wants to jump into this one.
I mean, I guess just to take a first stab at this, Jacob. I think the model that I see is we have centralized exchanges and we have decentralized exchanges, right? Like it's up to the user which they want to use, right? Like if they're confident, if they're a connoisseur in the crypto space and they're able to have that self custody wallet and maybe they know how to bridge or whatever it is, they might go for the decentralized option. Or hey, I want to bet on something that's not politics, so I'm not going to use PredictIt, right? And so it's really up to the user to be able to find these platforms and determine which is the best for their specific needs. But I do think we're going to continue to see that duality between the decentralized platforms a la Polymarket and Kalshi, where it's like a Web 2.5 product, which might be generous in the case of Kalshi, Web 2.5, versus fully on-chain versions. And so I'm not gonna sit here and say that the fully on-chain versions are 100% better and you guys need to be using decentralized ones, because obviously we're still, I would say, in the exploratory phase of prediction markets, right? We have the two titans at the top that are generating tens of millions of dollars in revenue per month, and then we have the others that are fighting neck and neck to get market share, to try and find that product market fit and to try and solve hard problems, because there's a lot of hard problems to be solved in prediction markets. When you look at it from regulatory perspectives, when you look at it from the liquidity perspective, the user experience, rules, there's a lot of discovery happening across the space. And so I think the centralized versus decentralized exchange is probably the most apt comparison in terms of the duality that will remain in the market.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think these are two separate tracks. I think that's kind of the whole point of the decentralized versions there. So the people who prefer that track, that totally makes sense. From the regulation perspective, I do see this intertwining with regulated sports books and casinos very, very closely, and that's what I track on a daily basis, just generally because I'm interested in the industry. It actually doesn't affect PredictIt directly too much. We do like to support Kalshi and Poly market generally in some of these cases, but across the board, if we look at what's going to move forward, we've actually seen Kalshi now win the Third Circuit case, and basically saying the federal government does have the jurisdiction over these state gaming commissions, and that's just such an we'll probably be seeing this go to the Supreme Court at some point. It might be in 2 or 3 years. I do expect it to head there, and if you want to trade on that Supreme Court case, inevitably it will be on predicted.org. But but what I will say is, if these prediction markets are fully legal and the CFTC takes precedence, you are going to see FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, you're going to see every single player on the gaming space become a prediction market. And that's just because of the regulatory intricacies. It's much harder to work with these state gaming licenses. You have to answer to a very specific board of people. I mean, I had experience in the past where, the Massachusetts State Gaming Board is much more complex than the New York one, or, any other kind of easier gaming commission. So it's much easier to just answer to one regulatory body, which is the CFTC, and you don't have to pay state taxes if you answer to the CFTC versus the states. So that's where I see the industry going.
I love it. Guys, I'm really grateful both of you were able to jump onto this broadcast today. I think you both bring really unique perspectives and obviously a lot of experience and research into the industry. Really appreciate you guys speaking to our audience today. If there's one thing that we can leave this space with from both parties, what would that one thing be? Jacob, happy for you to go first.
You got it,
It's a
boss.
good question. What one thing to leave? I mean, look, there's like a thousand different ways to skin a cat. Pardon the saying here, but I think we all welcome the different takes and the different problems we're trying to solve. Again, you can tell that DeFi Daddy is doing a completely different thing than PredictIt, which is doing a completely different thing than some of these other players in the space. So we welcome everybody, and it's exciting time to watch the prediction market space.
Absolutely. And our favorite Canadian, DeFi Daddy.
Canada on top, but not really. Thank you for taking first stab. I needed some time for the brain to circulate some blood there. I think one of the most exciting things about prediction markets looking forward is whether you agree with it or not, it's like the hyper gambleification of society. Right. I think we've seen this on Black Mirror a couple times where people are betting on things they shouldn't be betting on. But it's the unfortunate reality where if humans want to speculate, they should be able to. And clearly, there's a very strong product market fit for people betting on how many times Trump is going to say a certain word or the weather. And I think there's a lot of abstract uses of prediction markets that haven't been tapped into yet that I find personally very exciting, and specifically turning illiquid markets into liquid markets. So, for example, I don't know, real estate, luxury watches, cars, Pokemon cards. I think there's a lot of interesting avenues that really haven't been tapped into and brought to market and presented to people. And I think that's the most exciting thing is A, prediction markets are super cool, and B, the potential of them still hasn't really unraveled for the rest of the world to see. And at the end of the day, if people want to gamble, they're going to gamble, right? Like, you can self-exclude yourself from a casino, but eventually you'll be back in Vegas at some point. And so
Absolutely.
it's just like what's the word? It's kind of dystopian to see prediction markets evolve the way that they are, but at the end of the day, I mean, we haven't had precedented times since like 2020, and I think things are only going to continue to get more weird, and prediction markets are at the forefront of it.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I really appreciate the time that you guys have spent speaking to our community today. I wish you guys both the best of luck, and let's definitely stay in touch. I think there's a lot for all of us to learn from you guys, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty more questions that I have coming up where you guys can fill in the gaps because you've obviously spent a lot of time in the industry. You've obviously spent a lot of time building your products as well, and we're excited to see your success. So, guys, really appreciate today, and I guess we'll see you guys all on the next Surgecast. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.